The Titanic. A tragedy we thought we knew everything about. But what if the most haunting story from that fateful night was one you've never heard?
Oh, you've piqued my curiosity. What untold tale are we diving into today?
Well, we're exploring the heart-wrenching story of Josefa and Victor, a young Spanish couple whose honeymoon turned into a nightmare aboard the Titanic. It's a tale of love, premonition, and the cruel twists of fate that shaped not just their lives, but the lives of generations to come.
A Spanish couple. That's not something you hear about often in Titanic stories. What makes their story so unique?
You're right, it's not your typical Titanic narrative. What sets this apart is the eerie premonition that preceded their journey. Victor's mother had a vivid dream of the Titanic sinking, and she begged her son not to board the ship. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of canceling the trip, Victor devised an elaborate plan to ease his mother's fears.
Oh, I can already tell this isn't going to end well. What was this plan?
Well, before boarding the Titanic in France, Victor left a stack of pre-written postcards with a friend in Paris. This friend was instructed to mail one postcard to Victor's mother every day, creating the illusion that Victor was still safely in Paris. It's a detail that adds a layer of tragic irony to the story, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's like something out of a Greek tragedy. So, what happened on the night of the sinking?
The night of April 14th, 1912, unfolded like a nightmare. Josefa and Victor were settling in for the night when the ship struck the iceberg. Victor went to investigate and returned to tell Josefa to get dressed. They made their way to the deck, where the true horror of the situation became apparent. In the chaos, Josefa managed to get into a lifeboat, but Victor didn't make it.
That's devastating. Can you imagine being separated from your spouse in such a moment of crisis? It's unthinkable.
It truly is. And here's where the story takes another tragic turn. As Josefa was in the lifeboat, she heard Victor calling out her name, but his voice was drowned out by the terrible cries and shouts of people drowning all around. It's a scene that haunts me every time I think about it.
Wow, that's just heartbreaking. So what happened to Josefa after she reached New York?
Well, that's where the story of resilience begins. Josefa arrived in New York alone, a young widow in a foreign country. But here's the thing about human spirit, it's incredibly resilient. 6 years after the Titanic disaster, Josefa remarried and went on to have 3 children. She lived until 1972, passing away at the age of 83.
That's remarkable. But I can't help wondering how that experience shaped the rest of her life. Did she ever truly get over the trauma of that night?
You know, that's a question that's hard to answer. We don't have detailed accounts of Josefa's later life, but we can imagine the impact such an event would have. It's likely that the Titanic disaster influenced every aspect of her life, her relationships, her outlook, even how she raised her children. But her story is also one of incredible resilience and the human capacity to move forward even after unimaginable loss.
It's a powerful reminder of our ability to survive and even thrive after tragedy. Do you think stories like this have influenced how we approach maritime safety today?
Oh, absolutely. The Titanic disaster led to major overhauls in maritime safety regulations. For instance, it became mandatory for ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers, and the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea was established in 1914. So in a way, the tragedy of Josefa and Victor, and all the others who suffered that night, has helped save countless lives in the centuries since.
That's a powerful legacy, even if it came at such a high cost. It's interesting how often it takes a tragedy to bring about necessary changes.
You're right, and it's a pattern we see repeated throughout history. But let's bring it back to Josefa for a moment. Her story of survival and resilience is equally important. She faced unimaginable loss and trauma, yet she found the strength to build a new life. That's a powerful message for anyone facing adversity.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's hope for the future. Josefa's story is as much about new beginnings as it is about tragedy.
Well said. And you know, as we wrap up this episode, I can't help but think about the power of storytelling. The Titanic disaster happened over a century ago, yet stories like Josefa and Victor's continue to move us, to teach us, and to remind us of our shared humanity. It's a testament to the enduring power of personal narratives in the face of historical events.
That's so true. These individual stories help us connect with history on a more personal level. They remind us that behind every statistic, there are real people with hopes, dreams, and fears.
Exactly. And on that note, we'll bring this episode of Gen FM to a close. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and human experience. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your spirits buoyant. You never know what stories are waiting to unfold in your own life.
And remember, whether you're embarking on a grand ocean voyage or just going about your daily life, every moment is an opportunity for adventure, connection, and growth. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Gen FM.